What's going on, guys? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another episode of your Pathfinder 2nd Edition playtest spoilers. All you druids, all you wizards, all you clerics, hey, maybe even all you psychic casters, gather round. The time's come to learn how we're gonna fireball people to death. Paizo's latest Pathfinder 2nd Edition blog is out, and it's all about spells. Before we get down to that, though, we need to shout out our newest patron, who's making Doomsday Dawn happen, the man who pushed us over our $150 benchmark, Tomoya Nagase. And if that's the famous Japanese singer and actor, then so much the better. My friend, thank you truly so much for your generous support and your time. It means the world because it's on the back of the patrons up to and including you that we're able to do bigger and better, super cool, super awesome things. So again, truly, thank you so much. Now let's get to it, shall we? Okay, so if you've watched any of the Glass Cannon podcast or any of the Pathfinder 2nd Edition live play, you know that you can cast spells by using somatic components, verbal casting, and material stuff, not unlike how your spells had those components in 1st edition, but in 2nd edition, adding the additional component means that the spell takes more than one action, and it means it has an additional effect. To quote Paizo, you can cast spells by using some combination of the verbal casting, somatic casting, and material casting actions. The most common combination is verbal and somatic casting actions for 2 total actions. Not every class interfaces with those actions in the same way. For instance, clerics can use a divine focus to satisfy the material casting action, not unlike in 1st edition. Sorcerers use their magical blood, and bards can use instruments to change up several aspects. For instance, even if you're gagged or otherwise unable to speak, you can play your violin to provide the verbal casting portion. That flavor is super sweet. So too is this art of this druid that we haven't talked about. I assume it's a druid. It kind of really looks like the iconic Arcanist from 1st edition, just with, again, those Kaepora Gabora from Zelda Ocarina of Time eyebrows hanging out. I learned a lot about gnomes this weekend. There's a lot of things about them in 1st edition that, frankly, I just didn't realize they had, and maybe I looked at them a little too World of Warcrafty. At my tables, maybe I should break down and play a gnome. Regardless, gnomes will appear in Pathfinder 2nd edition, and if you'd like to learn more about them, follow this card right here to see our halfling and gnome coverage. So in the playtest, Paizo is going to be trying out new rules for heightened spells. Again, to quote Paizo, in the playtest, you'll be able to heighten your favorite spells in order to gain greater effects than before. Heightening a spell works much like it did previously, when you prepare a spell in a higher level slot or cast it using a higher level slot if you're a spontaneous caster, except now all spellcasters can do it, and you gain much more interesting benefits. Want to fire 15 missiles with magic missile? Oh man. Or turn into a huge animal with animal form? Just heighten those spells to the appropriate level. How do I get 15 magic missiles? Please, Paizo, I need to know this. There's no longer any need to learn long chains of spells that are incrementally different and each require you to refer back to the previous spell. I really like that. That's a lot less book diving. That's a lot less like this spell functions as enlarge person, except this. Well, what does enlarge person do? Let me look that up real quick. Okay, it's that. Slows the game down, bogs the game up. No fun. Now we just heighten the spells for greater effect. I like it. Here's a little something we've already heard. Incidentally, the idea of using a spell's level to determine its power has led to some really interesting interplay between spells. For example, how many times have you run into a situation where your high-level illusionist is foiled by a simple detect magic spell or similar effect? Now, illusions of a higher spell level than a detect magic cantrip can foil detection. Similarly, dispel magic has a harder time dispelling spells of much higher spell levels, while it can crush low-level spells with ease. But can it see its enemies driven before them? Can it hear the lamentation of those lower-level spells? Women still waiting on the barbarian for that, I guess. This extends to many other similar interactions. While in Pathfinder 1st edition, a creature with some basic effect that's constantly active might be flat out immune to your spells, now you can heighten your spells and overcome that obstacle. What that means is if you're expecting an illusionist, you prepare your detect magic as high up as you can, or if you yourself are an illusionist, one of my favorite spellcasting archetypes as a GM that I've always really wanted to play as a player, but I never get around to it for this exact reason, because there's just that one pebble that I will trip over and then there's the whole character concept on its head, right? Now, in a lot of situations, it's not a problem. The illusionist has a little more power and I can dig it. On the subject of cantrips, in the playtest, cantrips are spells you can cast at will but they're no longer level 0. Instead, they automatically heighten to the highest spell level you can currently cast. Paizo cites Ray of Frost. If you're 5th level, Ray of Frost is a 3rd level cantrip and deals more damage, and your light cantrip is better at counteracting magical darkness. So not only does that mean that things like Mage Hand, things like Prestidigitation might become more powerful and a little less just utility spells moving forward, it also means that maybe Ray of Frost, maybe Acid Splash, maybe any of those, like, here's 1d3 points of damage that I can do forever because I forgot to pack my crossbow, wizard powers, might actually be relevant. I'm still calling it now. I really hope that Mage Hand eventually, as a higher level cantrip, becomes something more akin to telekinesis, or at least maybe like exerting 35-40 pounds of pressure, because really, who doesn't want their sorcerer to actually be a Jedi, right? I can't be the only one. Of course, we expected this to come along with spells. Pathfinder's domains and bloodline things are going to get overhauled as well. Quoting Paizo, these powers are now treated as a special kind of spell, and they are all cast using spell points. While you don't really count spell points differently than if you had a pool of uses per day, think your key pools, your arcane pools, panache points, oh my. This allowed us to create new and interesting abilities that cost multiple spell points, or that you could add extra features to at the cost of more spell points in a way that works across the classes more smoothly. So what I'm expecting from this is, for example, say a Draconic Bloodline Sorcerer can manifest their claws, and maybe at the cost of a spell point, their claws can do elemental damage akin to whatever dragon they trace their heritage from. A Cleric with the Air Domain might channel like Gust of Wind that eventually becomes something more powerful like Control Winds, or even Winds of Vengeance at a super high level by burning these spell points. Versatility is what it is. Bloodline powers getting more powerful and versatile is super awesome, because personally I've always been more of a sorcerer than a wizard. I've always thought that if you had the ability to do something, you did it. And now if one of my favorite classes is getting a bit of an overhaul, so much the better. So you may have heard by now that in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, there will be level 10 spells. We finally have a little bit of insight into what they are. Those spells will consist of a class of spells that used to be, as Paizo calls them, 9th level plus. What they mean by that is that the spells were 9th level, but they also had very expensive material costs. Think Wish or Miracle. In the playtest, these spells are free to cast, yeah, but are 10th level. They've also thrown in some brand new and amazing spells for 10th level, Fabricated Truth and Nature Incarnate. And one of those actually has a critical failure preview back in the Critical Hits and Critical Failures blog. I'm gonna slide over there real quick. We're going to assume that Fabricated Truth, if you critically succeed the roll, the target believes the fact for an unlimited duration. Sounds super powerful, and again, it may be time for yours truly to roll up an illusionist. Pathfinder 2nd Edition might finally be the arena where I can play that effectively. Pathfinder 2nd Edition will also see rituals brought back into the fore. Now, we say rituals, and you might think, oh, 5th edition. Rituals existed ever since Occult Adventures in Pathfinder 1st edition. You'd see them as like big summoning effects or big weather-changing effects that involve a bunch of different roles and alternate casters and stuff. Personally, I've never cast a ritual in Pathfinder 1st edition because it seems like there's always a bunch of hoops that you need to jump through, and usually I'm casting Greatsword. So I'm coming into this one a little blind, but to quote Paizo, ever since we introduced them in Occult Adventures, rituals have been a favorite both among fans and the adventure developers here at Paizo. In the core rulebook, there were spells that sort of followed the mold already, the 8th level spell Binding being a perfect example. In the playtest, these sorts of spells have been made into rituals. Rituals in Pathfinder 2nd Edition will be downtime spells that do not take up your spell slots, and martial characters who manage to attain a high enough proficiency rank in magic-related skills like Arcana can also cast them. That's right, the fighter can cast spells now. Again, quoting them, this is particularly great when, for instance, the cleric dies, but the monk can perform a resurrection ritual. Yep, that means the big long quest to find the diamond and appease the cleric of Iomedae and Erastil and Sarenrae, oh my, can be done with. If the humble monk can resurrect dead people, downtime picks up that much faster. We're not trying to figure out how to bring back Jimmy's cleric. And more importantly, we get back to the story, we get back to the game, we get back to throwing dice at the table. Is that not what it's all about? Paizo does also note that a non-ritual spell, Raise Dead, will be coming back in Pathfinder 2nd Edition in case we need to bring somebody back into action faster, however. Let's not forget that in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, everything can critically succeed or critically fail. In this blog, Paizo says if you critically fail, planar binding, you call something dark and horrible that isn't bound by your wards, and it immediately attempts to destroy you. Or in other words, whoops, it's a high-level encounter. Now, we do have several sample spells to dive into, and we will in a second, but also this blog brings up magical traditions. This blog brings up arcane casters and divine casters, and it looks like the difference is going to be changed. Quote, magical traditions, such as arcane and divine, have always been a part of Pathfinder spells, but the playtest gives us an opportunity to really explore what they mean, what makes them different, and how they metaphysically interconnect in a way that enriches the game's story. Magic taps into various essences in the cosmos. For example, arcane magic blends material essence, the fundamental building blocks of all physical things, and mental essence, the building block of all rational thoughts, logic, and memories. This means that arcane traditions share a lot in common with science, and arcane spellcasters tend to use logic and rational methods to categorize the magic inherent in the physical world around them. Divine magic is the exact opposite. It blends spiritual essence, the otherworldly building block of the immortal self, and vital essence, the universal life force that gives us instinct and intuition. This means that divine traditions are steeped in faith, the unseen, and belief in a power source from beyond the material plane. These ideas have led to some exciting new additions of spells into each tradition's repertoire, but what I'm seeing here is a lot of stuff that sounds like psychic casting. Mental essence, the building block of rational thoughts, logic, and memories, that sounds a lot like the logic component from the psychic casters of 1st edition. The universal life force that gives us instinct and intuition, vital essence, that kind of sounds like concentrate really hard. Imagine you are turning into the wolf and bam, the psychic's a wolf. Does this mean we won't see psychic casters in Pathfinder 2nd Edition? Does this mean all the casters are kind of psychic casters in Pathfinder 2nd Edition? I have so many questions. I need to know what's going on. Paizo, give us more information. All the psychics out there are begging you. But enough about that for now. Let's talk about some example spells. First off, we have Heal. Heal allows us to channel positive energy to heal the living or damage the undead. You restore hit points equal to 1d8 plus your spellcasting modifier to a willing living target, or deal that amount of positive damage to an undead target. The number of actions you spend when casting this spell determines its target's range, area, and other parameters, not unlike we've seen in the live play of the playtest. Somatic casting, or one action, the spell has a range of touch, and you have to succeed at a touch attack to damage an undead target. Somatic and verbal casting, the spell has a range of 30 feet and doesn't require a touch attack. The undead must attempt a fort save and they take half on a success, no damage on a crit success, or double damage on a crit failure. All three actions, material, somatic, and verbal, you disperse positive energy in a 30-foot aura. It has the same effect as the 2-action version, but it targets all living and undead creatures in the burst and reduces the amount of healing or damage to your spellcasting ability modifier. If we heighten the spell at +1, we increase the amount of healing or damage by a d8, or by 2d8 if you're using the 1 or 2 action version to heal the living. So what that means is if we heighten it to a 2nd level spell, it heals 3d8 plus modifier. Heighten it to a 3rd, it heals 5d8 plus your ability modifier. So heighten it to 4th, it's 7d8. That's a lot of positive energy. The next spell we have to look at is called Regenerate. I'm sure we all remember it from Pathfinder 1st Edition when we accidentally lop our arms off and have to go crying to the cleric. In Pathfinder 2nd Edition, this is a 7th level spell. The target temporarily gains Regeneration 15, which restores 15 hit points at the start of each of its turns. While it has Regeneration, the target can't die from damage, and its dying value can't exceed 3. If the target takes acid or fire damage, its regeneration deactivates until after the end of its next turn, so it's suddenly a troll spell. Each time a creature regains hit points from regeneration, it also regrows one damaged or ruined organ, if any. During the spell's duration, the creature can also reattach severed body parts by spending an interact action to hold the body part to the stump. I guess I understand why it has the necromancy descriptor, but it should probably also have the, trollomancy descriptor, because suddenly everyone who gets targeted by this spell is now a troll. Heighten this spell to a 9th level spell, and that regeneration increases to 20. One more spell before we have names of new spells with no effects. Vampiric Exsanguination. Vampiric Exsanguination allows us to draw life force from creatures and send it into your outstretched arms. At spell level 6, it lets us deal 10d6 negative damage to all living creatures in the area. As long as at least one creature in the area takes damage, you also gain half that many temporary hit points. Of course, a success is half, a critical success is no damage, a failure is full damage, and a critical failure, double damage. Heighten this spell up to level 8 and the damage will increase by 3d6, meaning at spell level 8, we're throwing out 13d6 negative damage, which you imagine still heals the undead, so your necromancer grabs this to have a big blast of I'm gonna heal my guys and also heal me too. If nothing else, at the end of this spell, they do definitely say, Urgathoans, rejoice. We're gonna sign out today with a list of spells that we have that will be new, but we don't know what they do, so hey, as always, in the comments below if you'd like to make some guesses. I'm more than happy to keep that conversation going with you. The new spells are called Alter Reality, Collective Transposition, Crusade, 4 Yomade, Disappearance, Divine Inspiration, Duplicate Foe, Energy Aegis, Mariner's Curse, Moment of Renewal, Moon Frenzy, Nature's Enmity, Primal Phenomenon, Punishing Winds, Revival, Soothe, Spell Rack, Spiritual Epidemic, Spiritual Guardian, Tangling Creepers, and Unfathomable Song. Usually I don't play spellcasters, sometimes I'll play 2/3 casters because mostly I want access to I hit it over the head with my hammer. But I gotta say, in Pathfinder 2nd edition, spellcasters are looking a lot more versatile and a lot more fun. Every spell has something different you can do with it, and again, illusionists might be viable. What do you guys think though? Did you play a lot of spellcasters in 1st edition? Will 2nd edition be the first time you've played a spellcaster in Pathfinder? And if so, Divine or Arcane? Don't forget, guys, our Doomsday Dawn giveaway is live right now and it is funded. It was funded this morning. There's going to be an announcement video about that come out in the next day or so, probably, when I get a chance to edit it. You guys have between here and the 2nd of July to see to it my Patreon sits at around $150 a month. Comment on the video at this card right up here with your interest, and I'll run you and 5 of your fellow subscribers through the Doomsday Dawn adventure for Pathfinder 2nd edition, the first ever published bit of Pathfinder 2nd edition content. And hey, you know, if we can get my Patreon to rise a little more, maybe around like the $300 mark, I'll take another group of 6 through because it's gonna be super exciting. And also, for you old grognards out there, not unlike myself, who aren't ready to let Pathfinder 1st edition go, or who enjoy it just so much, again, much like myself, we're sending Pathfinder 1st edition off in style with a tournament. I need 16 of your most optimized, brutal, min-maxed Drow Nobles, Centaurs, Munavri, all the bells and whistles, rolled up to compete in some good old-fashioned blood sport for the glory of Paizo Productions and an unseen force who I won't mention because it spoils the tournament. If you'd like to enter that giveaway, follow this card right here. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos. The next episode of your Pathfinder 2nd edition preview content drops this Saturday.